This video is about choosing parts of an interview that should be quoted directly. The video first discusses the two main ways to quote people in a news story. These two ways are quoting directly and paraphrasing. The video then addresses when it is better to use direct quotes rather than to paraphrase. So there are two main ways to tell our readers what people, we call them sources, told us. One of these ways is quoting a source directly. This means that we will type up what a person told us exactly the way they said it and include it inside the quotation marks. Our examples of direct quotes will come from a part of an interview American science communicator Neil deGrasse Tyson had with NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Christina Koch in November 2019, while Meir and Koch were at the International Space Station. Let's have a listen.
So let's talk about food. The different segments of the International Space Station representing different countries who participate. And so do each of you trade food with each other when you get bored with your meatloaf or something? I'm just curious how much food exchange goes on the International Space Station.
Well, we do. So NASA has a food lab, which you may know, and they develop most of our majority of the food that we as American astronauts eat. But the Russians also have a food lab, and we are actually allowed to choose a certain number of our food allocation from the Russian food system. So both Christina and I like exotic and different foods, and so we went with a maximum majority of Russian food that we could add. We also have some foods developed by the European Space Agency that we can add to that mix. We have a European Space Agency astronaut up here, so we get to sample a little bit more of that because he has a little bit more of that than other people. My goal was actually to fly with a Japanese astronaut because I love Japanese food and I really wanted some of that, but unfortunately we don't have any of that up here right now. But we do tend to share. The Russians will actually bring other things down to us, and we'll trade favorites back and forth.
Another way to let readers know what a person told us is to paraphrase. This means that we are summarizing the main idea of what this person said in our own words without using quotation marks. This is also called quoting indirectly. To practice indirect quotations, let's look for a direct quote we could paraphrase in Neil deGrasse Tyson's interview with NASA astronauts.
I've eaten in restaurants in both Italy and in France, and I'm guessing the French and the Italians have no interest in trading food with anybody else.
Well, our Italian is pretty generous. I think one of the highlights on the food system is the lettuce experiment that we talked about earlier.
When paraphrased, this quote might sound like this. Meir said Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano is willing to share food prepared by the European Space Agency with other inhabitants of the International Space Station. I tend to add quite a lot of clarifying information when I paraphrase my sources. In practice, most of the interview with the source will be paraphrased. Only a small part of the interview will be told as direct quotes. So how do we choose what to quote directly? While we are talking about writing stories that will be read, I'm asking you to actually forget about writing to be read for a minute. Let me tell you a little secret. Because I was trained as a magazine editor and not as a broadcast reporter, I still write my video scripts as if I were a magazine writer. This means that I apply the rules for choosing direct quotes to the cases when I'm going to use a talking head. A talking head is what you are seeing on screen right now. It's me speaking on camera. I really dislike speaking on camera like that. That's why I try to make sure that I use a talking head only when I absolutely have to. First of all, I have to admit that I sometimes don't really plan to speak on camera. I end up using a talking head because I discovered that I misspoke while I was recording a voiceover. So I speak on camera when I make a mistake like this. Our weigh-in is Greenbelt in Maryland, and May 3rd was a Wednesday. In such cases, to keep the narrative going, I pretend it was always meant to be this way. Our weigh is in Greenbelt in Maryland, and May 3rd was a Wednesday. Those unplanned cases aside, I mostly speak on camera when I don't have any pictures to illustrate what I say. For example, when I say something like this. Now let's imagine that somebody who is not a celebrity died in a hotel in Dubai. This allows me to keep telling a story using my face as a filler when I have nothing else to show on screen. In other words, I use a talking head so that I could tell you something that is important to say to keep the story going. I also tend to speak on camera when I tell how I feel about something. I teared up several times when I was editing this part of the video. This event touches me because it makes me happy that people who worked so hard for so long managed to do it right. Finally, when I speak on camera, I try to say something that is interesting to hear because I think I say it in a way only I can say. If you don't know how to start your story, see if you can start with the doer of the action who did something, somewhere, sometime in the recent past, and then see if that's the best way to create for your readers the same picture you have in your mind. To recap, I try to speak on camera only in 3 special cases. I usually have to speak on camera when I must say an important part of the script, but I have no pictures to illustrate my point. Or when I'm talking about something that makes sense to illustrate with my face, for example, when I talk about my feelings, attitudes, and experiences, or when I say something unusual. We tend to treat direct quotes the same way. We use them either when the content of the quote is special by itself, or when it is special in the way it was said. We also use direct quotes when we cannot effectively paraphrase something important. And this brings us to the end of this video. This video was created by me, Yulia Medvedeva. Photos and videos from the International Space Station were obtained from NASA Image and Video Library. Thank you for watching.